there is no place on the balance sheet for the freedom of getting to live life on your terms.
You're listening to the Profit First for Lawyers podcast, the official companion show to the book Profit First for Lawyers by RJon Robbins. Now, this podcast is for you if you want to bring home more profit while working fewer hours in the office, spending even more time with your loved ones, and turning your office into a lean, mean, profit-breathing machine. So if you're tired of working for your law firm instead of your law firm working for you, stay tuned for some really practical insights that will get you the results you've always wanted. It's time to put your BS aside for the next few minutes and put yourself, your family, your firm, and your profit first. Welcome back to another episode of the Profit First for Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Carly, and today we are in studio with law firm owner extraordinaire, John Cannon. John, welcome to the show, and may I just say, at last.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to herd cats with schedules and super excited to be here with you today.
Okay, so before we get into all of the meat and potatoes of this particular episode, John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience and let them know who you are, what area of law does your firm practice, and what got you interested in that area in the first place?
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm John Cannon, owner and founder of Cannon Associates in Oklahoma City. We're fierce advocates for families and freedom, specifically those facing the criminal justice system or family loss, whether it is divorce, paternity case, and other issues that pop up in family law, such as guardianships, adoptions, things of that nature. What really got me passionate about criminal defense is I just love the cops and robbers aspects of law school. I started as a prosecutor. I worked for the government as an assistant attorney general and just could never get over the itch of doing criminal law. That's what got my start in private practice and been passionate about that ever since, representing people in some of the most difficult times. And the day-to-day interactions with law enforcement that deal with some of the most complex issues in our system. What does the Fourth Amendment say about when law enforcement interacts with citizens? On the family law side, I'm a child of divorce myself, so I've always been passionate about helping kiddos navigate the process of divorce. And just as the firm has grown, that's been a focus of continuing to provide those services to folks here in Oklahoma. And have an amazing team now that helps people on both sides. We have a family law team that only serves that area and a criminal defense team that only represents those facing the criminal justice system.
Now, John, I know that you have been a big, longtime fan of the book Profit First for Lawyers, and weren't you one of the early readers also?
Yeah, I got an early release of the book. Super excited about the concepts of Profit First and applying it to the business of a law firm.
I know that you brought a specific clip from the studio today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce it, and then let's dive right in?
Yeah, absolutely. As I've grown in my business and other aspects of my life, I've found that the term profit has changed its meaning to me. And so profit initially was just dollars and cents. And now as a father of 3, profit is also quantum of time. And so what I really focused on is trying to find ways to win back time. And a big part of that has been the amazing team that we have here. But the only way that you can bring on great people is to have a productive, profitable business that can afford to hire great people and keep great people on your team. And so I'm excited today to talk about the different aspects of profit beyond just dollars and cents.
Ooh, okay. I'm very excited about that. What a great tee up. Let's go ahead then. Let's take a look at this clip. Let's roll it.
How profitable is your law firm compared to mine? To protect your sanity, I would encourage you to be prepared with an answer to this question. How profitable is your law firm? And ask yourself this question every day before someone else does. Keep in mind that depending on who is asking, the question, of course, could have a very different meaning. For example, when another lawyer asks, how profitable is your law firm? They often mean compared to their own. Or they could mean, should I buy it? Or they may be feeling you out to find out if you might consider coming to work for them. When a prospective lender is asking, how profitable is your law firm? They probably want to know if you will be a good customer who will borrow lots of money from them and pay it back on time. And when your spouse or significant other asks, how profitable is this law firm? They are probably looking for some reassurances that all of the sacrifices you and your family have made will be worth it. But the most important opinion about the profitability of your law firm that you must be concerned with, of course, is your own. And here is where it gets a little bit tricky, because as the owner of the business, we must, at least we should, take into consideration more than what is conventionally understood to be profit. As entrepreneurs who built our firms from nothing and who wake up every day and do it again, we must ask ourselves a deeper question. Compared to what? So look, it can be a lonely place for the owner of a highly successful professional services firm because it requires the courage and strength of conviction to turn your back on conventional wisdom. This is why I asked you to be prepared with your own definition of what it means to you for your law firm to be successful. There is no place on the balance sheet for the freedom of getting to live life on your terms. So before we get to the real point of this chapter, I just want to encourage you to take a moment now away from your bookkeeper, away from your accountant, and anyone else who might think that the only way to measure the profitability of your business is on a balance sheet, and consider how else you are going to measure how profitable your business will be for you.
Ooh, what a really beautiful and kind of meaty chunk of the book. Okay, so I know you gave us a little bit of a precursor of this, right? As life has gone on and your kids are a little bit older, that now profit is meaning a little bit more time saved and all that good stuff, or time spent on things that are really important and move the needle for you. Go into this a little bit more, John. Why did this particular clip speak to you?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that if we don't have a target in mind, we're all just rowing to nowhere. And so I've tried to, as I've matured in marriage and parenting and business, to get more clarity on what my goals are. What do I want family life to look like? What do I want time with my kids to be? What do I want my relationship to the law firm, my team to be, our customers? I know you've touched on it multiple times in the podcast, but a business plan and having personal aspects or a family plan. Like what's the goal in a given week, month, quarter, year with your family, strategic calendar. So I've not always done a great job of that, but for me, it's expanding the definition of what profit means. And so the business that I run, because of the great people on this team and the systems that we're always trying to improve upon, whether it's the acquisition channels, marketing and sales, the production side of delivering the services that we're hired for, the relationship aspect, the team, the financial controls, the infrastructure, all the things that it takes to make any business run, those things getting more and more solidified is giving me the bandwidth to come up for air and look at a bigger picture, look further out into the future, look at different contexts. And so I, for the longest time, had a super detailed business plan, but didn't have the same level of depth in the plan of what profit in my life really meant to me. So I think it's important to have the business plan. It's important to have systems in place for all those different parts of the firm. It's important to take money out before, the end of the month. And it's also important to take back time. I'm in the National Guard. I'm a judge advocate, have been for, 15 years now. And I had a commander that I'm so close to who said, how do you spell love? Time. And I think that's so true that, like, for me, it's making time, protecting time, putting blocks in the calendar, boulders in the calendar, and dedicating that time to family, to the things that matter, to hobbies, to interests. So I've been fortunate enough with our team in place to block out a week before school starts back up to be gone. I was gone the majority of June. As
Good
you
for
may be
you.
aware, I was deployed for 11 months to the Middle East in my roles as a judge advocate. And so Profit First definitely deals with dollars and cents. And so I'm happy to get into, but our business has, a tax account and a profit account and a bonus account for our team and things that are to the benefit of me and my family that are debited every single month without anyone doing anything for those long-term plans. And the great thing about those things, if you make them a fire and forget system, which is Army for you push the button and it just happens the way it's supposed to happen, then it just month after month after month, it's built in. And as RJon and others on this podcast have said, and as RJon says in the book, then you build the systems around something you make concrete in the business, and you will find a way to overcome the friction that comes from that. No matter what, there's always
Yeah.
stress, there's always friction, but is it for something greater, or is it just a day-to-day grind? And so I strive for the friction in my life to be for greater things.
Okay, there are so many things that you just touched on that I want to get back to. So let me tease out the threads of 3 of them, and you keep me accountable. Do not let me forget that I want to get back to these, John, okay? Because one of the things that you had said was your previous business plan was really, really complicated, but it didn't really protect your own personal goals. I want to get back to that. The second thing you said was your family's personal strategic calendar. And I think that's so interesting and something we haven't really talked about on the show. So I want to get back to that too. And then the third thing that you had said was kind of how your thinking around profit has changed as a result of you building these systems that you fire and forget, right? So I've got 3 things. We're going back to them, John. Don't you dare let me forget. Let's start first and foremost with your super complicated business plan. So give me a little bit of like, here's what I did before, here's why it didn't work, and here's what I put in place instead.
Well, it worked. It just didn't touch on all the things that are profit or matter to me in my life. What wasn't really included is I had this loose, like Wednesday afternoons I take off and Fridays I take off, but it didn't happen. Like 99% of the time it didn't happen. And so trying to get to the point, I have very few meetings that I'm in now. Our executive leadership team has done a great job of really owning things that are in their lane, and stuff only comes to me if they want my insight on stuff. So I think delegation, where people truly own things that are in their lane and that they understand. I didn't come up with this, but I love this concept of the compass, that what's good for the business, what's good for the customers, what's good for the team, what's good for the owner. And so if decisions align with that north, south, east, and west compass, then just make the freaking decision. And so training, infrastructure, we're growing towards a team that has the leadership able to do those things, which gives me the profit back of hopefully being more and more accountable to taking Wednesday afternoons off, to taking Fridays off, to doing family things. I've been religious about not coming into the office till 10 o'clock almost every day. And during the school year, that means I take my bookends to school every single day. And if there's time, I go to the gym after that. So making time in the calendar for the stuff that matters and then being accountable to it is something I didn't do a great job of before. And so now I'm striving to do a better job. And I think having a strategic calendar, even if you're overwhelmed, locking some things in the week, in the month, in the year, and then double booking yourself on other days, or just saying no to meetings or clients or court, and having 2 or 3 settings, or having difficult weeks because you blocked out time for family or the things that matter to you. Yeah, you're going to be in the suck the time that you're present if you're fully in production and all the other hats we wear as business owner, but you'll have protected some of that space for the other parts of profit in your life.
First of all, let me just start by saying I really appreciate the breakdown of here's the goal, and then we start backwards, right? RJon talks about that in the book. He breaks down the math of, if this is the goal, this is, what it looks like, break it down backwards, which sounds like has been very successful for you. And thank you for talking about the strategic calendar before I even had to ask the second time. I will say though, John, you've given me a lot of tactics information, which I think is really important, but you glossed over a little bit of the pain that got you to do it, right? Because I think RJon says a lot that your subconscious can scream at you because it doesn't like change, right? It views change as something that is scary, and taking your profits first and or making sweeping changes in your business in order to have the business, number one, run better and be more successful, right? But work for you can be really scary. And so we said, oftentimes we have to have the scary monster chasing us to force us to do it, right? What was your impetus to start implementing these things? What was the cause that made you take a look around and say, I got to start doing things differently so that this business serves my life instead of me just serving the business?
So I think there's been a maturity, a transformation in how I see myself as a lawyer versus a business owner that's a lawyer versus a business owner that practices law, and on to the point I'm at now that I truly believe like my role to this team is to be the law firm owner, to be the CEO, to not be operational. And so getting more and more comfortable with, stepping back from things I used to have be part of my identity, and getting comfortable in this new role, this developing role of truly being the owner of the law firm, being the leader of the law firm, steering strategy, steering the mission, the vision, the values of our team, how we're serving each other, how we serve the community, but not practicing law, at least not very much at all. And I feel very blessed to have, an incredible team here at this point that I trust in, that I think is really doing what is best for themselves, their family, this team, our customers. And so I'm really excited about, the third and fourth quarter of 2026, because I think I'm really going to get to that level that I've been striving for since the firm opened, of being the law firm owner, being the leader, and not wearing all the hats.
Yeah. Well, and John, remind me again, when did you hang out your shingle? How long has your law firm been in practice?
So I went out in private practice full time in 2019.
Wow. Okay. Did you imagine when you first opened your own doors that you would be to the point where you are today? Are you comfortable sharing where your gross revenue is at today?
Yeah, so we're on a $7 million run rate currently for this year.
Wow, 7 years in business and 7 million run rate. Congrats, John.
Thanks. The answer is absolutely not. There's been all these times in my life. I thought I was supposed to go to medical school. My dad was a surgeon. I just kind of fell out of love with medicine in undergrad and switched over to what made sense to become a lawyer. And I knew that I was going to be a civil practitioner. And I didn't like that in law school, so I switched over to criminal. And then it's just been an ever-growing process. And so there's pain points, there's low points, there's cash crunches, but there's also great moments. And so I don't know where our law firm will end up being. I just know that I'm passionate about this team, our impact on the community, and I want to continue to serve more and more Oklahomans.
Yeah. You know what? I really appreciate that framework too, John, of making sure that, when you are building a profitable firm, that you're not thinking of it as just profits for the firm and for the owners and shareholders and whomever, right? But also it's building this profitable system that also gives back to your employees and gives back to your clients and adds value to the world. Can we pivot just a little bit to your journey with Profit First and kind of some of the ways that paying yourself first has helped you to view profit in a different light, where now you've got all these other things that you're thinking of where, it's not just the money anymore. Now it's the time. Now it's the quality of life that you're able to have. When did you first start paying yourself? Or paying yourself first, I should say. I'm sure you were paying yourself in the beginning, but when was it the first thing that you did?
I think even before the Profit First book came out, I was intentional about putting enough money aside because I knew that like my wife and my children relied on, financial support from the law firm. And so that was a starting point. But then when the book came out, we immediately started looking at, okay, we've got these annual pain points, these, quarterly or monthly pain points. How do we address that? And so we started to be very intentional about, we had a tax account. So we put what we currently think worst case scenario will be for quarterly estimates. And we have an account that goes to cover what, if everybody knocks it out of the park and qualifies for their bonuses, that that money is set aside to pay those things. And I think kind of related to your question, there's this hierarchy of needs. And when you're in survival mode, it's only fight or flight. And I think by putting that money aside to make sure that my family's needs are taken care of, it really gives you that ability to take a deep breath and look beyond today.
Oh, I appreciate that perspective too. I know that it's one that RJon shares, right? That he says, this is profit and I'm not going to go without profit. For somebody who's maybe first starting out using Profit First, that their firm is maybe not as big or they're maybe haven't even hit the $1 million mark yet. What advice do you have for them so that they can avoid some of the pitfalls that you fell into early on?
Yeah, I would say mindset is the first piece. So I, for a long time, just saw this $1 million mark as something that had to happen, but I didn't have a why behind it. So I think it's really important to get clear on why is that a goal or a different goal? Why are we striving for that? Because I think if people understand why they want to achieve something, it becomes much more powerful and taking the steps to achieve it. And so I think the $1 million run rate is a good mark because that truly is a business and it has surpassed what most businesses in the United States will ever achieve. So it's something really to be proud of. And it also requires more people and systems and things in place that operates like a real business. As the operation gets bigger and bigger, it doesn't get easier because it's just bigger numbers, but you're also drawing down bigger numbers all the time. So I just think it's important to build the sets, the reps, the muscle memory of having these different profit accounts, and that you take the leap of faith by putting money in them each time you have funds that are earned so that it's there and available to pay for the things that you either want to be able to pay for down the road or you have the ability to pay for down the road.
I really like that you put that in what was it, that you build your sets, your reps, and your muscles. Because I think that's really good imagery for this too, right? Like if you are brand new to the gym, never been before, you don't start out with a 20-pound weight, right? You start out with the smaller ones, the start slow, let it grow method, right? Like build your sets, build your reps, build your muscle, continue kind of adding those challenges on. That's how you build muscle, but you certainly don't start with the heaviest lift or else you'll hurt yourself. And I feel like that is a really good analogy too for following profit first, right? Like you don't start out taking 20% of the profits out of your firm if you've never taken your profits first, because you might strain a muscle or break a muscle or,
Yeah.
that might be a very long recovery time and you might never set foot in the gym again, right? You got to start slow, let it grow, and build the infrastructure. I like that idea of building sets and reps, like put your workout routines together.
And can I add something to that before I forget?
Absolutely. That I saw you raise your hand and
Yeah.
I was like, go for it, John.
So I don't know if it's the Pentagon or the Army, but they've done a lot of research on physical health. And they have found that if you don't go to the gym in the morning, you probably ain't going to go. I know that's true in my life and probably lots of listeners. I think the same thing is profit. If you don't bank profit first, if you don't build it in the beginning of your day, it's not going to happen.
That's fascinating. And as somebody who I admit does not go to the gym, I don't think I've ever seen those posters, but that is fascinating. It's one of the things that I know that Mike Michalowicz talked about. And RJon has in the book, he's got a chapter at the end that is just kind of like a Spark Notes version, a summary version of some of the big concepts in Mike's book, just so that if you read Profit First for Lawyers before you read Profit First, you'll have a little bit of a jumping off point anyway. But he talks about that one. It's one of the first of the 3 P's that he talks about, the primacy effect, right? Which is why you have to take your profits first, which is why you have to work out first thing in the morning, right? Is that there's something that happens in your brain for your mindset. If you're putting it first, it's like a hierarchy. RJon explains it way better than I do. So flip to the back of your book and reread that.
Yeah, like a business plan or the important things in the law firm or the most important things in our day. I think if we don't build in time, protect time for them to happen, everything else gets in the way. Like there's 1,000 things that are on my mind to some extent that kind of need to be done, but there are things I blocked in like will happen today. And if you protect time for it, it increases the chance of it happening. And I think the same thing is true for profit. If you set up the accounts, start small, grow big, and just decide when funds are earned, when I'm going to do that trust transfer, just decide I'm going to put this much money into these different accounts and then just keep doing it. And so, like, if you decide you're going to put these funds into these accounts to be profitable for yourself, for your family, for the business, like your business will find a way to cover that. And as you grow, I have found that I need to do an even better job of building it into the beginning of whenever we move earned fees to increase, that confidence, that security blanket of those different profit pieces.
I really appreciate the perspective of, starting first in the morning, starting slow, letting it grow. Obviously, you have kind of this history of, it sounds like at least the way that it went for you was you were already fairly conscious of needing that profit as gas to make your business run so that you can help more people, right? Because that is very evident that was very, very important to you. I guess my question is, once you started taking your profits first, how long did it take for your mindset to kind of grow and evolve into that place where your definition of the word profit expanded to what it has today?
Unfortunately, far too long. I am hyper competitive, type A plus, and I think for so long I'd focused so much energy on like the success of business, and then the other stuff comes. But trying to do a better and better job of learning from the lessons and mistakes of others. That's the great thing about reading, is that you don't have to experience the suck yourself. You can read about it or listen to a book or listen to this great podcast to learn from the experience and suck of others. And so I think I took too long to focus on the other parts of my life that are the most important to me. So I think it's just as we mature and recognize what matters the most to us in life, which can be different things for different people, you start to identify what is profit. And for me, like time is one of the biggest types of profit that I'm hoping for. And there's been a lot of suck in that the past month, the past quarter, of spending a lot of time and stuff that I don't think is the highest and best use of my time for our team or for my life. But being strategic about, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm trying to go, and then working on reverse engineering a pathway to get to those goals, I think is really helping move the needle and communicating that to my team. And so just making time for those things that matter, I think is just as important as making more and more money, if not significantly more important.
Yeah. Do you think that some of the resistance to opening your mind or having that mindset, do you think some of that came from the fear that if you did switch your focus, or if you did, implement some of these things, that your firm would be worse off, or that you wouldn't be able to help as many people as you do now?
Yeah, I think just my type A, and like there's always more that can be done. There's always more to do. There's always some other thing to accomplish. I think was a real problem for a long time. And I'm going to struggle with that forever because I have a tough time sitting still, which I need to work on being still. So I think a big part of it is defining what winning or profit looks like in the year, in a
Mm.
quarter, in a month, in the week, in the day. And then once you've achieved that, say, okay, what else am I going to do with this day for my faith, for my family, for my personal life, for my interests? Because I don't want to be 60 years old, look back, and all I've done is build a massive law firm. Like that's not a full life. Someone was saying yesterday at this meeting that they read the words of Marcus Aurelius and spoke about something of, imagine that you are dead. Now look back on the life you've lived. What would you do if that were not true? And I'm butchering that quote, so feel free to look up the actual one. But just thinking about, if it were over tomorrow, would you be satisfied with a life well lived or not? And I think I've got a lot of growing to do in a life well lived. And so just trying to be intentional about building towards that.
Yeah, if it was over tomorrow, would you be satisfied with what you had done? It sounds to me a lot like a lot of this really goes back to that plan and the strategic calendar that you were talking about, and kind of profit first in general, right? That what is it? RJon uses the quote in the book from Henry Ford's the failure to plan is planning to fail, right? And making sure that you are being intentional, because to your point, John, I think it's too easy to let life make your choices for you if you're not intentional about making the choices of what you want your life to look like. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think knowing the identity that you want, defining the person that you want to become, not necessarily today, but what am I striving for? And then reverse engineering or building a plan for that. So I think it's important to define what winning looks like, define what profit is, and then build a plan to get there and know that it's okay to fail, because the more times you fail, the more lessons you learn. I think the most important things across my life have come from failures, because that's where I learn. I think that's where most of us learn. And so, uh, the more and more we fail, the more and more opportunity to get better. And so I think if the suck comes from things that are greater, man, that's a powerful feeling to know that the stuff I'm struggling with is for something bigger than myself, and then growing towards that.
Ooh, John, what a powerful way to close that out. If I were to kind of distill everything that we talked about today into some of my favorite concepts, I would say number one would be kind of getting out of the water, getting yourself out of the pool in order to see the bigger picture. Right? You can't plan until you know where you are. You can't know where you are until you can kind of get out of the middle of the chaos and kind of take a look, right? Like, what's your bigger picture? What's your bird's eye view? I would say plan, plan, plan. I think that's something we've been coming back to over and over again, right? With your strategic calendar, with your planning. How much profit do you want to take out? How quickly do you want to grow your business, right? And then also redefining what profit looks like for you. Maybe take a really hard, honest look at what your life currently is. Ask yourself, if it was all over tomorrow, would you be satisfied? And if you have regrets, right? If you're thinking to yourself, okay, it's all over tomorrow and I'm imagining that reality, what regrets do you have? And what actions can you take today so that your future self won't have those same regrets? I'm going to put one other one here because I think it's really fun, right? We've used the analogy of profit first, growing your financial muscles. And I just want to remind the audience too, right? Like, we talked about that quite a bit today, as well as the importance of taking it first, right? Of putting the things that are important to you first on the list. Make them boulders in your calendar. These are immovable objects because these are the things that are going to make me say, yes, I lived a fulfilling life. John, I have one more question for you today, and it's one that I like to ask every guest that comes on, separate and apart from anything that we've talked about today, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with Profit First. Can you tell me one of the most profitable pieces of advice that you have taken action on since joining How to Manage that has made a difference in your life?
Oof. There's obviously a lot. Gotten a ton of value from the community, from the lessons, from the leadership. I think stepping back and seeing that truly a law firm is a business just like any other service business that exists in the world, that it has elements that are the same. If you do any service you can imagine, whether it's pest control or laundry or any type of customer service endeavor, that it has these inherent elements to it. And the more you can step back and kind of look at those on the whiteboard and start building a plan for how do I optimize marketing and intake and sales and operational onboarding and production and financial controls and all the different parts of the business, and recognize that you need great people to have a great business. And this is another piece that's been huge from How to Manage, of specific job titles and then duties, responsibilities, KPIs, and then building that across the entire organization. Every law firm, like every service business, sometimes has 5, 10 different hats that people wear at one time. But the more they can at least be defined, then you can build a plan to put the right people in those different seats eventually. And I feel very fortunate that most of the roles that exist for a law firm are handled by one person at this point, or potentially two people, and always an iterative process of growing towards better systems, better way to have the business of law separate from the practice of law. And that's probably a lot more than you're asking for, but I think the highlights of that are step back, see it just as a business like any other service business, identify the different pieces, and start building a plan every quarter, every year on how to make it a better and better business separate from providing legal services.
Yeah, I really liked when you said separate the practice of law from the business of a law firm. And that is so, so true. Jon, thank you so, so much for coming on today and for letting me grill you as deeply as I have. I really appreciate your ability to and your willingness to be vulnerable and share the kinds of things that, might be scary to say on the air. But clearly, so much of what you've gone through has been huge in helping to get you to where you're at today. If somebody who is listening needed criminal defense or family law help in the Oklahoma area, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they're welcome to reach out to us 24/7, cannonassociates.com. Our office is 405-657-2323. Also, more than welcome to check out our YouTube channel, Legal Cannon. Love to hear from anyone and appreciate the opportunity to come join you today.
Thank you so, so much, Jon. I really appreciate you being on today. And for those of you who are listening to this, I hope it has been as helpful for you as it has been for me. Stay tuned next time for even more great content that is going to help you make your law firm more profitable and find more profit in your own personal lives. We'll see you there. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Profit First for Lawyers podcast. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, tell a friend and buy your copy of the book at profitfirstforlawyers.com. Your future self will thank you for it, and we will see you next time.